evening. I see people joining us. So let us give it 1 or 2 minutes for more people to join. Then we can get started. But in the meantime, many thanks for joining us today. So maybe I'll get started with the housekeeping comments, then we can save on time. Once again, thank you very much for joining today's webinar. It's a special one because it's happening after the CBD-COP in Cali, which most of us had the chance to enjoy and also learn from other partners. In fact, our mission in Cali was mainly to follow the discussions, showcase the work we do at CGIAR, but also establish linkages with strategic partners with whom we can count on as we implement our different science programs for collaboration and joint actions. And for that good reason, today we are lucky to have Catherine. She will give us more details about herself, but she comes to us from the NBSAP Accelerator partnership in the UN system. And we have also Natalia, who's in-house from the Alliance Biodiversity in CIAT, but based in Montpellier, if I'm not mistaken. Catherine will talk about the NBSAP Accelerator. Probably you will learn more about how it works and the opportunities it holds for CGIAR. And Natalia will educate us about the Agrobiodiversity Index. We hear about it a lot, but sometimes we don't know how it operates, how we can implement it in our science program. So this is a great opportunity. With no further overdue, I will first hand over to Catherine. Catherine, I was very brief with your introduction. Feel free to put 1 or 2 statements there about yourself so colleagues can know who you are much better. The floor is yours, Catherine.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to check before I start that that you can see my slides.
Yes, we can see them.
And they are in full screen.
Yeah, you have it right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Madden. I'm the Global Coordinator for the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership. I'm going to tell you all about the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership and give you a little flavour of the activities, of our governance structure and how we might potentially work together. But before I jump into that, I have been asked to give a quick overview of COP16, with many of us have just come back from it. So we'd like to just jump in first of all to a little bit of an overview of what happened, and I'm just sharing some pictures in the background just so you can get a sense of those who weren't in attendance, what was happening, and those who were there, perhaps a few memories. But it's the first COP since the adoption of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. and participants faced a tall order at this meeting with an ambitious agenda. It was held from the 21st of October to November 1st in the beautiful Cali, and it was under the theme of peace with nature, and it was known as kind of the whole of society COP. So we had a blue zone and a green zone, the green zone, which was a very effective engaging many Colombians, and where the blue zone was focused a little bit more on the negotiations. SBI 5 took place just before COP. It was an open-ended forum for a voluntary country review, and quite a unique and quite different approach to engaging with some of the negotiators and trying to understand kind of what the challenges that they've been facing. And there was unprecedented engagement across the board. So I think 23,000 people had registered at the meeting, although there were a lot less there in practice. But what was really interesting was the diversity of participation. So there were cities, there were businesses, there was a finance community. And as many of you know, the meeting was not without controversy. Governments failed to reach consensus on a number of key issues. And there was a lot of focus in the press on the meeting lost quorum and it had to close. But of course, there were also some very positive outcomes, and the meeting will now continue, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of some of the issues. So I'm going to share with you the key findings, update on the NBSAP component, which of course is the bit I'm working on agenda item 8, and of course some of the next steps. So just in terms of some of the key outcomes, the new Cali fund was announced or launched to share the benefits from digital genetic information, and really trying to think about companies giving a percentage of their profits to LDCs, to SIDS, to Indigenous people, and to local communities. A second outcome around Article 8J on Indigenous peoples, and this was adoption of a whole programme of work to ensure the contribution of Indigenous people and local communities was recognised, and particularly around kind of the benefit sharing aspect. New subsidiary body and the role of people of African descent in understanding their contribution to conservation. In terms of marine, agreeing a new process to identify ecological and biologically significant areas. And of course, then climate and biodiversity change was a big topic with reference to both ocean climate and biodiversity, but also this call for integration and to strengthen the coordination between the different COPs, the Rio Trio this year, but also into the future, and the linkages between climate and nature, and encouraging the engagement of the UNFCCC focal points together with the CBD focal points. And then finally, the adoption of the global plan of action on biodiversity and health. Decision 5.6, and one of the key items, and then agenda point number 8 and covering in SBI, was also the decision to revise and update NBSAPs. Parties were invited to submit at a minimum their targets, but ideally their NBSAPs. There was quite a lot of negative press in the run-up to COP, which was actually even before the deadline of the actual meeting itself, about the failure of countries to deliver. And I guess you can see the glass being half full or half empty. We're taking the positive perspective here that countries have made extremely good progress, and these figures do reflect real momentum. And I think it's important to think where we were with the Aichi targets in 10 years ago, and how many had submitted at this point in time. So we're much further ahead with that regard. On the target side, 119 countries have submitted, and quite encouraging is that 75% of those targets are aligned with all of the GBF targets. And Africa countries are a bit in the front runners here in terms of those that actually have submitted. And then moving on to the NBSAPs, only 45 countries submitted their full NBSAPs, but of course this is a challenge without the monitoring framework being fully agreed. So there was some expectation of this, but many countries were talking about submitting within the next few months or the next quarter, which is very positive. Good balance between developed and developing countries, showing that some of the challenges, no matter where you are faced, where you're based, you're facing the same challenges. Many of these were developed with cross-sectoral approaches and a clear link to national development plans and existing policy instruments. So overall, a good message. Well, again, not without its challenges. What we heard in terms of this piece about developing NBSAPs and the progress that has been made is that countries are facing some challenges. This was in achieving a whole of government, really achieving a true whole of government approach and really understanding on mainstream and how that would work, but also then moving to the whole of society and trying to ensure meaningful participation of Indigenous people, local communities, women, youth. These still propose significant hurdles. There was a lot of conversation about the technical, I always get this wrong, the technical scientific support centres, the 18 centres that have been identified by the CBD. Now, these 18 centres were discussed about their ability to strengthen regional cooperation, but then there was an additional discussion about, well, also we need to do that at subnational level, and what does that look like and what the challenges are around coordination, financing and capacity in those regards. And then obviously this ongoing discussion about kind of nature and climate and then how that looks in terms of the global policy instruments, in terms of NDCs and NBSAPs, but also all of the other MEAs that we need alignment with. The idea of, it's not just quantity, we need to think about quality, and the quality of these NBSAPs, and that wasn't discussed so much, and we'll look more now. We can analyze the NBSAPs as they come in, but a big recognition that the scope has broadened, and this makes it a challenge that countries are dealing with more ambitious targets, more ambitious goals with the same set of resources. So how do we tackle that? And it's really clear that, all parties should have access to the means of implementation. So that's finance, capacity and knowledge. And as many of you know, that was kind of the key themes of then the rest of the conversations through COP. There was also a conversation around implementing agencies needing to speed up, and that countries will be looking for more specialized support, and what does that look like moving forward. Part 2, there is a number of remaining agenda items. I think it was announced by the Bureau yesterday. The part 2 of COP will take place 25th to 27th of February in Rome. The key item here is looking at resource mobilization. How do we secure $200 billion annually by 2030 from all forms, but also to address the money and subsidies that harm biodiversity that need to be tackled? And then secondly, the question on the actual instrument or the mechanism that will be used, and whether a new dedicated global instrument will be established, or we utilize existing instruments and try and reform those. And then there'll be the final steps around monitoring, and then of course the questions on kind of how we engage with other organizations and the CBD itself. So just to flag, of course, we were there at the meeting. We had a very good presence. We had a help desk. We had a full NBSAP day on the pavilion, on the GBF pavilion. We had a high-level segment where we invited parties to come and make announcements around kind of how they're looking to increase commitments and to accelerate action on the last day of the high-level segment. So we had a good presence, and let me tell you a little bit more about us. So we were announced at COP15, and really this was the brainchild of the Colombian government, who were excited about the GBF, but also recognizing the issues, just as we've talked about, around the means of implementation and the challenges that parties were facing. So they brought together a group of like-minded countries, like Coalition of the Willing, to form the NBSAP Accelerator partnership, together then with the support from Germany, bringing some of the initial financing, and then later NORAD, Norway too, to really have 6 key objectives around kind of implementation of the NBSAP, strengthening capacity, access to finance, providing education, knowledge and capacity building. But I guess underpinning all of that, this idea of keeping NBSAP high on the political agenda, and ensure that it's part of national development planning. So this is the quite broad, ambitious goals of the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership. And for those who know the NDC partnership, which was set up after the Paris Agreement and has since mobilized $1.7 billion for climate action, they'll know that we've been established to try and do for nature what the NDC partnership has done for climate. Now, to date, we're on about 60 million. So I think we're a little far away from the amazing impact that the NDC partnership has had, but we're going in the right direction. In terms of a little bit about how we're structured and how we're formed, we have a steering committee. We're a country-led, needs-driven initiative. That's what we do. And so in our steering committee, we have 14 countries. That's co-chaired by Germany and Colombia, and then other countries representing different regions in the world. And then we have 8 observers, including some non-state actors and some institutional partners, as well as UNDP, UNEP, and CBD, who are the implementing partners for this initiative. We have a global coordination unit with staff from those 3 organizations. I'm based at UNEP, but we work as an integrated team dispersed all around the world. And I think we're around 10 people now. And then we're just forming our technical advisory group to bring some independent voices. And this is something that might be of interest to some of the individuals on the call today as we move forward. And then we have our broader membership. Our membership is either countries, CBD parties, institutional partners, or non-state actors. And so now we have 50 countries within the membership, and we have 30 in the pipeline. And this is just because post-COP, we've had a lot of interest from people to join. But I think key for us is not so much the numbers, but the idea that every single country in the world can join this partnership, and each of them has something to bring. And there's complementary skills and capacities and knowledge and awareness that everyone can bring to the table. And then we have to think about how we leverage those. And that's what our partnership is about. Members join and they have to sign up to our 10 guiding principles around country-led processes, coordination, respect for human rights, and they also sign up to sort of agreement of our work plan. It's not overly cumbersome to join. It's designed to be relatively easy with a low bar, really, because we want to be as inclusive as possible, and to really ensure that our members get access to overall this elevation and promotion of NBSAPs, access to tools in the middle, and then those countries that do receive ODA support can actually then leverage technical support. Over the last year, since our operational launch at UNGA in 2023, so about a year ago, we started really our work. We've got in-country support in these countries around the world through three different mechanisms. The first mechanism is our facilitator program, and essentially we're placing individuals in governments to help with the implementation of NBSAPs. They play a real crucial role for us in ensuring a whole of society, whole of government approach, and also trying to surface demands, which I'll come on to in a moment. And I am aware of my time. I won't go over my 15 minutes. I'll try. So these individuals paid for by us for 3 years with a budget. I think they get 100,000 a year just to make sure they can deliver their core activities. 12 are currently being placed in the countries on the screen, and we are just closing our expression of interest for the next 12 facilitator hosts, which are either countries or regions. Regional institutions, and we'll soon have 24 of these individuals in place. And you imagine they're going to provide an important network for us and in terms of understanding the priorities and issues of countries. Secondly, we have our GBF implementation. These are technical packages of around 17 million so far US dollars that has gone to 8 countries to support NBSAP revision, strengthening participation of IPNLCs, and then improving access to networks and knowledge. And then our third area is just about to launch. This is with the support of the Canadian government, looking at gender responsive NBSAPs, working in 7 countries. It's an 18-month project, relatively short, but really to set up inquiries on kind of where countries are with aligning NBSAPs to, aligning gender to their NBSAPs and vice versa. And then really putting a system project in place to then bring ideas back to our matchmaking, which I will tell you about just now. And then our work program has 2 other components. One is our insights and learning. We have a number of knowledge products, happy to share, and communication and outreach. Obviously, we're talking and engaging with many people at different events on advocacy and on different issues. Advocacy, for example, we've been really focused on the NDC-NBSAP alignment and helped establish the joint statement on nature, climate and people at COP28, and set up the nature, climate and coordination platform. Will help support it now as it moves forward. The last piece of our work program, and then I'll stop talking, is our matchmaking. And I'm just going to play a very short video. It's 1 minute just to show you what our matchmaking is, and then I will wrap up.
In the race to protect our planet, countries around the world are setting ambitious biodiversity targets, or NBSAPs, in line with the Global Biodiversity Framework. But here's the catch. Many countries lack the resources or capacity to implement their plans, and donors, institutions, and partners need flexibility, fundable opportunities, and an eye on quality and ambition. Early efforts within the NBSAP Accelerator partnership are demand-driven and show that in response to country needs, technical and financial support can be delivered at speed and scale. Our matchmaking mechanism is designed to bridge the gap. Here is how it works. As a demand-driven service, a member country submits a request for support. This is distributed to a network of experts, organizations, and institutions brokered by the neutral NBSAP Accelerator partnership, and yes, powered by AI. After strategic engagement and coordination, the country decides on the match. Funds and tailored support are successfully channeled to where they will have the most impact. We surface country demand, fast-track partnerships, and streamline access to the support that nations need, cutting out the noise and bringing together countries and suppliers to focus on what really matters, taking collaborative action for our planet. The NBSAP Accelerator Partnership, because the right connections lead to real impact.
I'll give you a little feeling for our matchmaking mechanism. And in a nutshell, requests come from countries. We put them through our system, and it's both using AI, but also using team and traditional networks to send it out to a group of suppliers. And so we hope that many of your different parts of your organization will be willing to engage and support and become suppliers. And the idea is that we then kind of leave the decision in the hands of our parties and send back potential suppliers to the countries, and then they can decide how to engage. We then step out of the process. Okay, so all we're doing is traditional coordination, and we're using sorry, I should say we launched at COP. So we launched a few weeks ago. So we have 28 requests now in the system. We have 18 matches that have now been made. And if you scroll down in the system, you see the targets they're focused on, and you join the process. Every month or so, you'll get a list of the requests that are coming through from the different countries, and can tell us if you're interested in working on any of them. They can be just technical support you can offer, or financial support, or both. It obviously depends on the request that's coming in. So just bringing it all together, in the middle you see the matchmaking, but then around the outside you see, our facilitator program, our gender project, which we're working, by the way, I should say, with CIAP Biodiversity Alliance is the partner on that gender project. The NDC partnership, some of these are our relationships, some of these are our core program, but really trying to understand the dynamics between demand and supply and to accelerate that process. Sometimes we get offers from the supply side, and then we bring them into the system. We're not trying to do any implementation. That is not our role. Our role really is to focus on matching, on coordination, providing that financial technical support. We really do remain country-led, demand-driven, and we're really trying to think, how do we work across all 23 targets? But where there are existing matchmaking or support services, then we're working very closely, for example, with HAC or UNEP WCMC on different themes. We would work very closely to deliver and to engage and align with those. We see ourselves as a neutral broker and really focusing on coordination and really trying to think about inclusivity, collaboration for speed and for scale. I'll stop there. Look forward to questions and engaging with you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Really very wonderful. And I expect a lot of questions during the Q&A exchange. But in the meantime, really, thank you for the information about the matchmaking. Also, the kind of intelligence about the capacity needs, financial needs, and technical aspects. And of course, some of the good news we got also from Kali. That was very, very useful. I'll come back to some of those things during the Q&A. But in the meantime, let me hand over to my colleague, Christine, for the Slido before we move to the next presentation. If Christine, you can hear me.
Yes, thanks everyone for coming today. And thank you, Catherine, for the really helpful presentation. I hope that the CGIAR staff could think meaningfully about how we can engage best with them in the NBSAP Accelerator. And so Vanessa, I believe, is sharing screen now for a Slido. We wanted to engage you all and ask this question: what do you foresee as an opportunity or CGIAR science programs to contribute to the NBSAP development and implementation. And so if you could join the Slido very quickly, you just go to slido.com and then put in the number on the screen. Please take a few minutes to just answer what you think is appropriate, especially according to your area of expertise and whatever program you're working in. Great. We have capacity sharing, technical support and integration across global agencies. Is that spurring any more ideas from other people? We'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll move on to our next presenter. Intelligence for the science programs, more technical support, particularly in relation to agrobiodiversity and collecting evidence with local communities. Thank you all. If you're able to, please, and have any other ideas, please contribute, but we'll move on to our next presenter.
Thank you, Christine. Colleagues can continue adding to the slide. Now let us give the floor to Natalia about the Agrobiodiversity Index, which is also very critical for the work we do. Natalia, the floor is yours.
No, let me just move this and then change that. And we are ready to start. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Natalia Estrada Carmona, and I'm a scientist at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIET. And I co-lead with Sarah Jones, the Agrobiodiversity Index. And today I'm going just to share like a little bit what we are doing. Let me just move this. Do you see the bar or it's just me? Okay, moved, and let me just move this too. Okay, good. Ready to start. So let me start first with the definition of agrobiodiversity. And it's beyond one crop or field, is actually multi-scale, multi-species, multi-taxa, and is pretty much what we consume or use or cultivate in all the ensemble species that allow that production. So includes the diversity of the soil as well as the genetic diversity for like breeding, etc., and as well the different ecosystems that allow different production systems. So it's complex, but then because it's not too emblematic to be captured by conservation or traditional conservation efforts have been like heavily neglected in conservation, and at the same time, agriculture often tend to be detached or is thought to be detached from nature. So then also agrobiodiversity has been like in a gray zone where it's not one or the other. So it's an invisible resource that we have and that we are losing. So the first or the main goal of the Agrobiodiversity Index is, are you seeing my screen? Or the presenter's mode?
No, we can see your
No, we
screen.
are seeing it. It's okay. It is
Okay, perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
So then the first goal when we created the Agrobiodiversity Index, so the first goal was to make visible all the contributions that agrobiodiversity can make in achieving sustainable food systems. In this process, so the Agrobiodiversity Index is both, is a framework and is a methodology. So the index was created through a collaborative process between researchers, government, businesses, and social society. And after a lot of consultation, there are like three core pillars that with our partners, we believe it was important to measure contributions from agrobiodiversity, so consumption, production, and conservation. So this is the skeleton or the structure of the index as it is right now. So then the index tries to capture the status of agrobiodiversity, the actions that countries or organizations are making towards using or safeguarding agrobiodiversity, and then the commitments as well towards those preserving and using agrobiodiversity. And just as a note, so in the first or in the global application, we use NBSAPs, we analyze NBSAP like to assess countries' commitments towards agrobiodiversity conservation and use. And then we have a set of indicators that then allow us to assess agrobiodiversity at different levels and for different components. And then like what we did is we collected global data sets that to measure these different indicators through different sub-indicators and these different, let's say, pillars and actions and levels. So what I want to show with this is that the index is a modular and flexible tool, and as well as a framework to show all the different things that need to be measured when thinking about agrobiodiversity, and at the same time, countries can adapt it to use or to get more granularity by using their data sets. So what we put in practice this index at the global level, and we managed to, let's say, get a benchmark in terms of agrobiodiversity use in current food systems, but then no surprise, is being underutilized. So, but let me just like show you just a little bit like why explicitly why it's being underutilized, or like what can be changed. So as we know, a lot of so there's over like 2,250 species that exist, that have been documented, and 7,000 are used or edible by humans. And then, but then when you will look actually at how many species dominate the production side and the consumption side of current food systems, we see that the diversity is very low. And if we look at the food group, we are dominated by cereals, so then it's not ensuring like a healthy diet. So this oversimplification in both in plates and in fields of the food systems is one of the main constraints that is driving all the processes, all the challenges that we often hear in different publications that are related to the current narrative, that is agrobiodiversity is disappearing from fields and places and is poorly conserved in gene banks and in landscapes. So then we have, like, we know that agricultural systems are massively contributing to transgressing planetary boundaries. Current food systems are massively failing to ensure nutritious food to the children. And then food systems as well are failing to ensure healthy lives. And now the most important death or cause of death is not lack of food, is related to bad food. And at the same time, this simplification has also allowed a high and concerning level of concentration of market power in the agri-food industry, which also relates to aspects of justice and equity and agility of countries to ensure the right of people to nutritious food. So then if we want to change this, of course, it's not small fixes in the overly simplified food systems. And that's where we think agrobiodiversity has the transformational potential. So let's think about a different alternative. Agrobiodiversity is rapidly being uptaken in fields and plates and is well conserved in gene banks and landscapes. So instead of having 2 or 3 crop species or having 1 or 2 livestock that dominate the food system, we can have over 2,000, even like if we use like a third of what we know we can cultivate, but we consume over 2,000, over 500 species and other type of protein sources. And then we also maintain and preserve these different auxiliary species that allowed agricultural production. So then we can see how agrobiodiversity can be an active player in bending the biodiversity loss curves. And by allowing production systems to be diverse, and at the same time to allow more resources for wild species that cohabit with agricultural lands. At the same time, we can think by having more complex agricultural systems, fields, farms, landscapes, so then we can also think and we can actively design those to contribute to these different natural resources, to water, nutrition, to water, land, soil, to reducing gas emissions, to improve biodiversity, to improve farmers and people's well-being and nutrition, I say, sorry. And at the same time, we know that this is directly linked to the different global agendas that are being planned separated. And now, as mentioned before, there's a call that we need to integrate those different agendas and help countries to report, let's say, articulated to all of them instead of in a separated way. So agrobiodiversity is central to this shift in biodiversity, but also in active contribution to these global other agendas. So, as I mentioned, so we did the global analysis and we realized we are underutilizing it. We increased the visibility of agrobiodiversity in different contexts. So now what is next? After the Food Planet Prize, we had the opportunity in 2023. So we had the opportunity to take the time to stop and think in terms of like, okay, what is next? How we are going to make agrobiodiversity part of the narrative of a positive transformation of food system. And that's what we think about. Okay, we are going to concentrate on 3 activities on know, consume, and conserve agrobiodiversity. And I'm going to unpack those in the following slide. So this is the work that currently we are working to mobilize agrobiodiversity as a solution. So consume agrobiodiversity for food system transformation. The entry point here is the school meals programs. And we are working with the School Meal Coalition, particularly because of the potentiality, the transformative potential that this school meal program has. So it has more than over 400 million children benefiting from school meals worldwide. And there's increasing investments on those programs and also increasing the awareness of not ensuring food security or caloric security, but healthy diets. And this links as well, so 2 things: how we can improve the perceptions of food and work with children to start liking again the food or the traditional foods or diversified foods, particularly when children have been immersed in non-healthy and ultra-processed and foods. So through home gardens, this has been one of the activities that it has been very promising. And here, this is an entry point for conservation, for as well learning as well about agrobiodiversity and the importance of agrobiodiversity in healthy diets. But at the same time, procuring systems, they have been working with the homegrown school feeding programs that connect particularly family farming to provide diversified foods. So that's what, like, we decided, okay, a good activity is to take a stock actually of what is the diversity in these different programs of the school feeding. So what we found is actually like there's huge contributions, benefits, but at the same time there's different barriers. But actually linking the homegrown school feeding program school gardens is a huge potential for transforming consumers and producers and using agrobiodiversity as a linkage. Then we are going to move that theory into practice in 3 countries, in India, Zambia, and in Peru, where we are conducting activities to diversify the meals and also to see how we can overcome some of the barriers that are listed in the literature, commonly listed in the literature. And of course, we are continuing the work and collaborative work with the School Meals Coalition and other partners to see how we actually can use school feeding programs as a transformative places or epicenters of transformation, and how we can ensure that every school can have a diversified and nutritious food year around. And for example, the CGIAR across all the different mega programs, this can be an entry point as well with the work that the Alliance has been doing as well with the neglected and underutilized crops, and also with the school meal. So we can capitalize on that. This is not new. We just need to as well embed it in different mega programs to uplift as well how work, or even connect how work on agriculture can directly benefit schools and children. So the second activity is Conserve Agrobiodiversity for food system transformation. The entry point here is a unique conservation strategy for agrobiodiversity and the communities that maintain it. This is a novel idea led by Peru, by the government of Peru, who enacted the agrobiodiversity zones. These are areas where the communities volunteer to preserve the landscapes and the varieties that they maintain alive through active or in situ cultivation, and maintain alive as well the cultures for diversifying. So this is a novel figure that one country that is a center of origin, domestication, and diversity is leading. So here we are partnering with them to increase, to improve the methods, or see how we can work better or make more feasible and easy to adopt monitoring systems that capture all the benefits of these agrobiodiversity zones, not only on conservation in terms of species or land races or crop wild relatives or varieties, but at the same time, how these agrobiodiversity zones are conserving to wild biodiversity in general, as well to nutritious diets, to sustainable production, to conservation, as I mentioned, but at the same time to the governance of those natural resources, and to the cultures and traditions, to the maintenance of those, and to uplifting as well the livelihoods and the well-being of the local communities doing this effort, which is at the end a global good or a common good. So we are also exploring with other partners how we can actually link that monitoring with funding mechanisms, including carbon or biodiversity or different new mechanisms at the landscape level. And for cultivated diversity, a lot of those funding, conservation funding financial mechanisms are for wild biodiversity or for intact ecosystems, but there's no work on agrobiodiversity. And this is a huge gap that we would like to contribute. And if you are contributing on this or working on this, please let us know. We would like to partner with your efforts. And then as well, we want to enable a platform to cross-country learning. One keynote is that agrobiodiversity zones now are going to be, and we are supporting that, the communities are going as well to be part of the OECMs. So then it also contributes countries towards their conservation goals. And then our final activity is no agrobiodiversity is for food system transformation, is that, okay, we know and we are focused on few and a handful of crops, but what is the option for diversifying, for widening it back again, the diversity in our food systems in plates and in fields? So for that, we need to kind of like know what crops exist and what are those functional traits that are related to, that are often selected by agronomic performance, but can we link those as well to ecosystem services? And can we identify which crops, for which crops we have information across different important or key traits that are linked to important ecosystem services? And what are the knowledge gaps? And what are the next crops that can start diversifying food systems in different contexts? So this is work that is led by Paul Fachon and also Sarah Jones and Damian Buleni, which are also part of the team. And at the same time, like Sarah is leading a component on documenting or developing, creating a platform for collecting different databases on agrobiodiversity, since huge knowledge gaps exist and persist. So then if we want to diversify, we need to have more knowledge, but to have more knowledge, we need to synthesize it, and we need as well to organize it so we can analyze it. So this is pretty much the activity the activities that are related with this no agrobiodiversity. I will stop there. I think I took up my time, and then I just want to flag that this is, of course, not a single effort by Sarah or myself. This is a collective effort and is ongoing with different organizations. If you are interested in joining us in the different activities, on all the activities, please let us know. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, Natalia. A lot of, and for us listeners, we can easily see the complementarity between your presentation and the presentation that Catherine shared with us earlier. I like really the focus to make sure that we don't only conserve in nature, but we make sure that conservation is happening in the field, and also we consume the diversity that we produce. If we don't produce it, it becomes very, very difficult really to consume it. And the knowledge gap that we are trying to address is also a critical issue. I do believe there will be some question and comments checking the Q&A and the chat. You will see things that are interesting. In the meantime, I will hand over to my colleague Wandera to the next slide. Then we have some minutes for the interaction with the audience. Thanks.
Vanessa, if you could share the slide, please. Thanks for joining. Let's have just your thoughts on what do you foresee as an opportunity to integrate agrobiodiversity in your research for development activities. Your thoughts, please. And join at theslider.com. Maybe give it a minute, see if there are any thoughts on this. Well, conservation in the field, one. Kagele, you seem to be speaking but muted.
Huh. That's funny. So I was very, very happy talking to myself. So thanks. I was saying as we run the slide, we can also open it for the verbal interactions in terms of interacting with the audience. So if there is any colleague online who has any comment or question direct to Catherine or on the NBSAP Accelerator partnership or Natalia on the Agrobiodiversity Index, please feel free to do so. In the meantime, there is a comment. It's not a question per se, but a comment in terms of making sure that agrobiodiversity is also really supported by government policies or even laws to make sure that really things are happening. Sometimes we talk about it and you wait for people to interpret, to initiate with no clear incentives and you don't get there. So I don't know if Natalia, you would like to comment on that aspect, especially trying to see how governments can support in terms of the regulations, in terms of the policies, and if even investment in soil health has a critical role to play in the way we can conserve agrobiodiversity. Any thoughts from you as we wait for other comments?
Yeah, and I think Peru is leading this the answer to this question. They are actively thinking about how to change or disincentivize the policies that are harmful to agrobiodiversity. We know there's a lot of efforts and calls for changing and repurposing policies, because policies that maintain the simplified production systems dominate, and actually they dominate and they cause a lot of harm at different levels. Whereas people trying to produce different or alternative production systems that are more diversified, low input use, and etc., and that are as productive or even competitive, they need to fight against the current, against the support as well. They need to fight hard. So now countries need to actually, think about not only how to enable agrobiodiversity, like through the agrobiodiversity zones, but also actively thinking how to dismantle this incentive or dismantle and change the policies that disincentive agrobiodiversity. But the countries as well, we need to think, we need to conceptualize things better. Countries can do as much as they can, but countries as well are very limited by as well international and powerful corporations that are limiting the production. So we are facing a food systems that are compromising the sovereignty of countries and the agility of the countries to act and to ensure the healthy food people. So this is not only a country discussion, this is a global level and a global agendas, how we are going to balance the power and help countries as well to those that are willing, how they can do it, and as well ensure that they have the freedom to do it. So I don't know if I respond, but then I don't have any specific and concrete case right now, but I know that Peru is leading this. So probably if someone is more interested on the details or learning from other countries, I'm happy to put you in contact with the Peru team that is leading this work.
Excellent. You are giving us a second example because the comment was referring to India. So we can just say that we already have India and Peru. And that is really quite interesting also as we think about cross-regional learning. See, for instance, how things are being done in India, how things are being done in Peru or anywhere else, then try to see the kind of cross-pollination. I have not seen any comment and no raised hand. Before we wrap up, yes, Natalia.
Just one, and just to complement, because there's related to one of the comments on India. So even the country can have good policies on preserving agrobiodiversity and land races and so on. But we also are facing a changing in diets and a perception that the food of the old is like the food of the poor or the food of the rural and so on. So that's why it's so important to start working with the schools to improve the value and of reconsuming back those foods and diversifying again our diet. So there's also a change in values and in perceptions and cultures that is important, and that's why schools is important, but also working with the consumer is critical. If not, this mainstreaming agrobiodiversity will be hindered, the uptake of agrobiodiversity will be hindered.
Yes, I would agree with you 200%. And I think the periodic table of food initiative is also led by the Alliance, because really creating the awareness for people to know what we consume and what we are missing when we don't consume ABC is very, very critical. And I'm afraid to make the comment, I should have made it earlier, really appreciating the work you are doing with the schools. Some people would talk about start them early to make sure that they get used to it and they can even be able to educate their families. So keep up the great work. So before we wrap up, I have a quick one to Catherine, especially about the matchmaking. Colleagues have shown some areas where they see possibilities for collaboration and so on. And you referred to it. And what I'm curious to understand is you get demands from countries, you create a database for that. I just want to find out how one can access to it in terms of informing some strategic approaches. If I think about CGIAR, I think we have something that we can offer, listening also to Natalia, something that we can offer in terms of technical support, in terms of capacities, especially for project development, similar to what you said about NDC's partnership. Sometimes countries fail to access, if I use the climate case, access the green climate funds because what it requires in terms of the strategies to develop the proposal sometimes is not there. Just want to find out briefly how one can access the information and be able to use it. Is protected A, protected B, what it is. Back to you, Catherine.
Thank you so much. It's a great question. So first of all, in order to utilize the matchmaking mechanism, you have to be a member of the NBSAP Accelerator Partnership. However, membership is free. It's a relatively low bar to entry. We just need you to agree to our overall goals and our work plan, and you can contact me to become a member of the organization. On the one hand, we have, as I mentioned earlier, 50 countries currently members, and they are slowly starting. We launched 3 weeks ago, right? But they're slowly starting to submit their requests. So we have one on sub-regional NBSAPs and how they're developed. We have one on restoration. We have one on restoration in cities. We have one on conservation, have one on spatial planning. So all sorts of different requests that are coming in. And as parties finalize their NBSAPs, we look for more requests to come, right? Because parties are only starting to do that right now. On the supply side, we invite organizations like yourselves to join. You send a letter to our co-chairs from Germany and Colombia and say, we'd like to join, and then you become part of our system. Once you've signed up, you receive a list of the requests every 8 weeks on average. Could be more, could be less, but not too frequently, with the list of those requests coming through. Now, sometimes the requests are a really easy match. Some we've made very quickly, right? Others we feel that will require what we call a multi-partner match, where we might look at our supplier database and think, well, we need some technical support from X, Y, and Z. We need financial support from so-and-so. And we might have to put the match together in order to go back to the country. So that's what we're doing. And that's how it functions. So what we ask is that you basically tell us, I'm interested in all of the match, in some of the match, or you don't have to contact us if you're not interested. And then we go back to the country and we try and find an answer, basically. And so our job is to coordinate and to help countries to articulate well their request so that it's easy for potential suppliers to step in and engage. So we really need you as suppliers in this process, because we're not the suppliers. All we are is the middleman, if you like, kind of trying to do that match. Further down the line, we have actually just announced at COP that we will have something called the Last Resort Fund. Now, this is some money that we've received from a donor. So when a request goes through the system a couple of times and doesn't receive the support it needs, it can then go into the Last Resort Fund to receive support. So we're trying to look at multiple modalities to try and ensure that we can get access to countries quickly, smartly, utilizing what's there, and when it's not there, trying to find help for it. And we look forward to having partners from CGIAR. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. It's a really nice way of concluding our discussion. First of all, thank you very much for both of you, Kathleen and Natalia, for creating the time, especially as we had the 3 COPs happening at the same time, all of them requiring your contributions. I can just imagine the time constraints, but you have been able to make it. Thanks to colleagues who have been able to join us today. I think this is our last webinar for 2024. And I do hope, I'm trying to be very positive, that our next webinars will be in the context of the multifunction landscape science program in terms of the continuity, because all we are discussing about NBSAPs and the Agrobiodiversity Index fit very well in the multifunctional landscape. So we hope that the leadership of the multifunction landscape will take up this work, because it's a really good moment for us to share information. With this said, thank you very much, and talk to you during the next webinar. Before then, for those who are traveling to Riyadh for the UNCCD conference, COP16, there will be a lot of discussions related, probably linked to what Natalia said, linked to what Catherine said. So let us continue the engagement, and bye for now.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Have a nice afternoon.